This business is not sponsored by or affiliated with the United States Department of Veterans Affairs or your state's Department of Military and Veterans Affairs or any other federally chartered veterans service organization. Other organizations, including but not limited to your state's Department of Military and Veterans Affairs, a local veteran service organization, and other federally chartered veteran service organizations provide this service free of charge. You may qualify for other veterans benefit services outside the scope of what this business offers. All disability claims for increased ratings are processed by the United States Department of Veterans Affairs. This business cannot expedite the processing of your claim by the United States Department of Veterans Affairs.
All right. Good morning / afternoon / evening, possibly, depending on where you're at. Welcome, fellow veterans, to this Wednesday's Facebook Live edition. Happy to have you here. Yep, we're going to have a good time for the next hour. My name is Coach TJ. I am, again, happy to be here with you guys. I am joined by Coach Isaiah, my friend, teammate, all the above over there as well. So we're going to be going through a very interesting topic today. It is going to be related to AFFF foam. That's fun stuff. Now we'll talk a little bit more. We're going to get into much more depth about that, but if that is relevant to you, that is what we'll be going over. But before we do that, we are going to give it, well, at this point, about 3 to 4 more minutes for the potential stragglers to join on in and get tuned in. So that way, we make sure everybody has a chance to get in. So while we're taking that time, feel free, grab yourself your coffee, your water, whatever your beverage of choice is, get settled in, maybe grab a notepad if you like to do that sort of thing, who knows. And while you're in, feel free to also throw into the chat or the little comments your branch of service, the years that you served, that type of stuff. If you are currently signed up with VA Claims Insider, you want to give your coach a shout out, feel free to do that as well. We love to see that. I personally love to see my fellow Air Force veterans chiming into the comments. But real quickly, while we're all just kind of waiting, Coach Isaiah, how on earth is your day today? How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing absolutely fantastic this morning. I already had my cup of coffee, so I'm good to go for the rest of the day. Maybe might throw one more in there, but I don't know yet. But I'm Army, so love to see. Hopefully, I can see some Army in the chat. Hopefully, I'm not alone here today. But I'm super excited, super stoked to kind of go through this and figure out this process and talk to you guys about AFFF.
That's right. And if you're questioning whether or not you should do another cup of coffee, you know the answer. I mean, you know that. So just grab one once we're done. Just get it over with.
Probably, all black this time.
That's right. And speaking of your little comment, I already see the Air Force was first to chime in. James Hayes, welcome, sir. Fire protection. This is a very relevant class for you. So good to have you here. Another Air Force veteran, Richard. Nice.
I got Army in the chat. I love it. From Ohio.
There you go. Hey, another Air Force.
Air Force is taking over right now. I don't know what's going on.
Listen, I mean, what else did you really expect? I mean, come on. Again, not that it's a competition. But if it was.
Of course not. Even though the Army-Navy game is coming up, but who's counting, right?
Yeah, that's fair. We didn't quite make it to that game. It is what it is. Okay, so real quickly, I am going to go ahead and just briefly introduce myself. Again, my name's Coach TJ. I have been working here at VA Claims Insider as a coach since May of 2022. And outside of being in the service, hands down, best job I've had. Love working with other veterans and helping them accomplish their goals. It's a funny little story about how I came to be working here. A previous employee at VA Claims Insider, I knew him because his wife was my financial advisor, and that's how I knew him, and he kind of referred me over. And after about 6 to 12 months or so later, I was fortunate enough to get an opportunity to come on board. Again, I am an Air Force veteran myself, and I am also currently rated 100% permanent and total. So yeah, love doing what I do. Happy to be here with you guys. And I will kick it over to you, Isaiah, real quick, if you want to just, briefly introduce yourself.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Yeah. So like I said before, I am Coach Isaiah. I am an Army veteran. What I do here really hits home for me. I was not an elite member, but I wanted the chance to be able to impact veterans' lives because I understand the frustrations that come along with this process. I see my dad go through it, and he stayed at 80% for quite some time, and he really never got above that. And I thought that I could help him out. So being in this job definitely helps me out, just to be able to help veterans and understand this process better, to be able to relay that information to you guys and educate. That's kind of what brought me here as a veteran coach at VA Claims Insider. I think it's one of the best jobs I've ever had outside of the military. To be able to impact somewhere, I think is honestly, there's no better thing to have. So that's what brought me here. I really love it. I enjoy every day. I help hundreds and hundreds of veterans to educate them on how to get the rating that they deserve at the end of the day.
That's awesome, man. And like you said, I mean, especially as a veteran, there's really no better situation than working with other veterans, right? I mean, we all in some way, shape, or form can relate to each other, and the camaraderie, all that stuff. That's what's missed the most, I think, when most people get out. So it is good stuff, and we've got quite a few people throwing into the chat. So it looks like we've got a good turnout here tuning in. So again, before we actually dive into the topic and to all that stuff, today's session is going to be mainly related to AFFF, foam exposure, and we will dive into what that means, what that is, how to do it, who could potentially qualify, all that stuff we're going to go over. So make sure, grab your pen and paper, take some notes, write down some questions. We will, towards the end, once we've kind of gone through all the detail and the information, we'll get around to some of your guys' questions that you type into the comments. So feel free, if you have a question and you don't want to forget it, throw it into the comments. We'll get around to as many of them as we can. If we do not get around to your question by the time this session ends, you will be reached out to. So peace of mind there, right? You're going to get an answer one way or another to your questions. And with that being said, Coach Isaiah, if you don't have anything else, feel free to kick us off.
Yes, sir. Thank you for that. Yeah. So, before we dive straight into AFFF, I want to tell you a little bit about VA Claims Insider's Elite program and what that's going to look like for you. So what we kind of like to do here, the method that we like to use is called the SEM method. And what that stands for is strategy, education, and medical evidence. And I'll break that down for you. So strategy, this is a very, very crucial point. It's kind of like the starting point of your journey here at VA Claims Insider. You're going to basically have a strategy call with your coach, and that's going to outline the game plan. What's the path of least resistance? What makes sense if we can look towards those high value claims, and how we can basically get you the rating that you deserve, and honestly, hopefully, get you that first submission in the first 30 to 45 days as well. So that's what that strategy call is going to entail. It's really, really great. I would highly recommend, if you're not already a client, to go ahead and get that strategy call and that discovery call placed as well. And then education. We have a lot of great resources here that you can look over. And also getting that knowledge for yourself is very, very important to understand the claims process, to understand the VA and how the VA wants to see things. So having that education is very, very important. Like I said, we do have a lot of blogs here that goes over CMP exams, high value claims, the rating criteria for each rating that you might have. So the education here is next to none, in my opinion. Of course, we do have a lot of classes like we are doing right now, the Facebook Live, but we also have other classes such as the new client group orientation, coffee with the coaches, mental health exam education classes, and then also medical exam education classes. So like I said, get into those classes, read over the information, get all that wealth of knowledge for yourself, just so you can understand how this process is going to look for you. So education is very crucial and important. And then also medical evidence. Like I said, medical evidence wins claims at the end of the day. It's going to be very, very important to have that medical evidence to strengthen your claim. Because at the end of the day, if you don't have any medical evidence, it's harder for the VA to rate your claim and to see exactly where you're coming from with your conditions. So medical evidence at the end of the day is going to win claims. And we do have an administrative services that is a separate company called Telemedica. They're really, really great at getting that medical evidence. They go through nexus letters, DBQs, IMOs, and all the different things that you would need to help strengthen your claim. So, whenever you and your coach have that strategy call, you can definitely go over that and see if that pertains to you and if you need to go down that route. Like I said, we have up to 3 live classes throughout the week that you can get into. Like I said, Coffee with the Coaches is one of my favorites just because it's an open forum for, all veterans to kind of just talk about anything. And you're, like I said, alongside of your fellow veterans. So it's kind of like a safe place for all veterans to kind of talk about anything and just kind of, get the morning started off right. Also, we have, mental health exam education clause. This is basically kind of going to go over what the mental health exam is going to look like with CMP exams, what the high value claim looks like with mental health, and what goes into mental health as well. So I really, really think that, with that, the wealth of knowledge that comes along with that is going to be very, very great. And then we have medical exam education clause as well. This goes over musculoskeletal conditions, tinnitus, migraines, and things of this nature, the different conditions that come along with it, and what the CMP exams is going to look like for that as well. So all these different classes that I just stated just now is going to be very important for you. And remember that education, getting that knowledge is very important. And then if you want to learn more about this process, please book a discovery call to talk to one of our team members by going to vaclaimsinsider.com. So booking that discovery call is going to get you started in the right direction and go ahead and talk to one of our coaches here at VA Claims Insider. Reach out to our organization at vaclaimsinsider.com. Like I said, we'd love to partner with you on your VA claims journey.
Awesome introduction there to the program, Isaiah. Now we're going to get into the nitty gritty, right? We're going to get into this actual topic here, this AFFF topic. So AFFF, now I hate trying to pronounce things, but Aqueous Film Forming Foam. That's what that stands for. Try to say that 10 times fast in your spare time. But so that's that. It's basically that fire suppression foam, right? Now that, repeated exposure to that has been shown, through some studies and things that they've been doing to cause or potentially cause some health, adverse health effects and conditions later on in your life. And so veterans who did have that exposure during their service, you might be dealing with some stuff. Now, it includes, but is not limited to, things like respiratory or breathing conditions, skin conditions, rashes, that type of stuff, right? Those are probably 2 of the more common ones. There are even some forms of cancer as well that have been kind of shown to be related to that. But the first step in all this is really just recognizing, if you did have exposure to it, recognizing the impact that may have not only on claims, but also on your life and your health, and understanding what that all means. So, you may be asking, well, can I get compensation for the AFFF exposure? Yes, it is possible. Any veteran, if you can establish a connection between your exposure to that chemical and a diagnosed medical condition that you have, you may possibly get compensation. But it's important to remember that, and we'll probably talk about this more, but you've got to have the diagnosis. So if you know that you did a job, you were exposed to it repeatedly, and then over the years, that you've been having issues, you're coughing up a lung all the time, or you've got skin rashes, or you've got whatever it is, but you've never been to the doctor for it, but that you've got some stuff going on, go to the doctor, go ASAP. The first step is always getting whatever it is medically diagnosed. Okay, so now the compensation for the exposure, this is important too. A lot of people are probably thinking, well, I wasn't a firefighter, but I've still, had some pretty extensive exposure to it. So you do not have to be firefighter, fire protection, anything like that in order to go for this claim. there are other careers, job duties and things like that. For example, if you worked around the aircraft a lot, if you spent a lot of time in the aircraft hangars where they have those fire suppression systems and all that stuff, even if you were not fire protection, you were still around it. So the MOS doesn't entirely matter. It's the exposure based on whatever your job duties was that does matter. And so you want to understand that going into it. But the big thing here is proving service connection. That's probably the next question that comes to everybody's mind. How do I do this? How do I prove it? So you've got to have three main things to prove, and really this goes with any claim, but AFFF claims as well. You got to have three main things to try and prove it. First thing, like I just mentioned, a current medical diagnosis. You have to have that of some sort of condition. You cannot just claim exposure itself. That will not work if you don't have any health conditions diagnosed that are related to that exposure. So you've got to get whatever it is diagnosed. It could be, as I mentioned earlier, it could be a form of cancer. It could be a breathing condition, a skin condition like psoriasis, that type of stuff, but you got to go get it diagnosed. And more importantly, recently diagnosed. Within the past 12 months is ideal. If you got a diagnosis 22 years ago, but you haven't been to the doctor since, not going to work. You got to get a current medical diagnosis. And then, of course, there's got to be that in-service event or injury. And for AFFF purposes, really that's just your exposure to it, right? So even if you didn't go get medical treatment when you were still in, because most of the time these things take time to develop. It's not like you immediately develop a condition most of the time after exposure. So, but you just got to be able to show, based on what your job was, is usually the best way to do it, what your MOS was, because the VA, they do acknowledge that there are certain MOSs that definitely spent a lot of time around these types of chemicals. And then a nexus, a medical nexus. That is the third piece of the puzzle here. Nexus is just a fancy word for connection. So usually this is in the form of a licensed medical provider's opinion. It could be a letter, a document, a statement from that doctor, whatever it may be, but their opinion linking that condition, whatever your medical condition is, to your repeated exposure to the AFFF foam when you were in the service. And so that is a crucial piece. And you can use, or at least try to use, anybody from a private doctor. You could give it a shot asking a VA doctor if they'll do that. And then Coach Isaiah had mentioned earlier, if you sign up and you're working with VA Claims Insider, we've got that administrative services company, that preferred provider network, Telemedica. They specialize in possible nexus letters as well. You may be able to have them take a look at it. But that's a big piece of the puzzle that a lot of veterans are missing. So those are those three main things to establish service connection. I'll recap it very quickly before I pass it over to Isaiah. So number one, current medical diagnosis. Number two, proving somehow, some way that you had that in-service exposure. Maybe it's through your MOS. Maybe you get some buddy statements from some people you worked with that also, saw your exposure to it and experienced that. And then number three, that medical nexus, that medical opinion tying your condition to the exposure to that. And with that, Coach Isaiah, go ahead.
Thank you for all that great information, Coach TJ. So we're going to kind of dive into VA disability ratings and compensations related to AFFF. So this kind of goes into exposure to AFFF. This often leads veterans to battle severe diseases such as cancer, hindering their ability to carry out daily tasks. And usually as a result to this, many rely on the aid of their family members for their just routine activities, right? So for an example, former military firefighters, for instance, who endure such disabling illnesses may qualify for VA disability compensation. Additionally, if the disease is linked to their service, they might receive cost-free healthcare. So, definitely want to check into that if you feel like you might be exposed to AFFF while in service, so you can get some of these benefits, such as the cost-free healthcare. The VA assesses their disability percentage between 10% and 100%, determining the compensation amount is accordingly to you and your conditions. The VA offers payouts based on disability ratings for veterans impacted by AFFF exposure. The VA monthly compensation fluctuates based on factors like the veteran's responsibilities and whether they support their dependents as well. So that's something to keep in mind. If the VA doesn't already have your dependents on file, you want to make sure that if you are 30% and above, you want to make sure that the VA acknowledges that you do have those dependents so they can be on your reward letter. So AFFF exposure and the VA disability legislation for this. Veterans encounter obstacles in securing rightful AFFF exposure disability compensation, primarily due to the VA's reluctant to recognize the correlation between AFFF exposure during active duty and resulting diseases. The Michael Lissick Military Fighters Protection Act, introduced by Representative Abigail Spanberger in 2020, aims to establish presumptions of service connection for firefighting related illnesses. The legislation stemmed from the tragic passing of Michael Lissick, a former U.S. Air Force firefighter diagnosed with multi-myeloma in 2019, attributed to frequent AFFF exposure. The scientific evidence confirms that the exposure to PFAS chemicals and AFFF significantly heighten the risk of multi-myeloma. Moreover, firefighters confront additional risk from benzene, asbestos exposure, exaggerating the threat of multi-myeloma. And so with that being said, I'll let TJ go ahead into navigating PFAS VA disability.
Yes, sir. So understanding the compensation health implications, very important in this process. Now, Isaiah referred to PFAS. You guys heard that. That's PFAS. I probably will not attempt. You can look that up to see what it stands for, because I'm not qualified to say that word, but that is a chemical that is in AFFF, right? And that's, what has been linked to be causing these health issues. Okay, so if you were exposed to that during your service, I was saying earlier, it's not just breathing conditions, it's not just skin conditions or cancer. There are other things, liver issues, liver damage, immune system problems, right? So there's not a specific just list. Oh, it's got to be one of these conditions. It can be a wide range of things as it is right now, and they're still conducting, different studies, health studies. But this whole process, it's not even just about getting the compensation, that financial thing. That's a huge piece of the puzzle, but it's also about getting that necessary medical care, if it requires it. And then just understanding and getting the knowledge of what you're facing, how to take care of it, how to go through the process. So you can certainly do, a claim on your own. You should explore that. You just want to make sure, I mentioned those three main pieces of the puzzle earlier when you're doing that. But you can definitely educate yourself through this process. Make sure you're checking off those three things and file a claim for it. Because yes, you can certainly get this if you establish all three of those pieces. Now, when you do, this type of claim, the VA, they're going to conduct that toxic chemical risk assessment. It's going to be, you'll probably have to do some questionnaires. Of course, the examiner who's taking a look at you will be asking you questions as well and taking a look at things. They are in the process, the VA, of establishing like an actual registry. Right now, you may or may not have heard, there is a registry for like the burn pits, right? That's a different type of toxic exposure. They're in the process still of doing that kind of similar thing, but for AFFF. And it's huge, when the time comes where they have finished that and established everything, that is definitely massive. Plus, there are a couple of different acts that that Congress has proposed and is working through the system. Of course, hey, it's the government. It's going to take a while, right? So they're still working on it, but it is a start in the right direction. And it just, the whole purpose of that is establishing, guidelines and boundaries for veterans who were exposed to these types of chemicals, so they can do claims, more seamlessly, so they can get that care and get that disability rating, quite possibly, more seamlessly. That's a big piece of the puzzle. But you can certainly kind of go through this. Just make sure you're doing your due diligence, you're doing your research, you're educating yourself, and so that way you understand what it is that you're going through. And then, of course, if you want to work with VA Claims Insider, or maybe you're not sure, are we a fit for you? Book that discovery call, right? Book the discovery call, have that conversation with one of our team members to learn more about that, because that can be, make or break a lot of the times, for veterans. So in conclusion, if you were exposed to AFFF or other of those PFAS chemicals during your service, and you've got health issues related to it, or you believe related to it, this is relevant to you. Now, also keep in mind, whatever your condition is, it's got to make sense medically. If you were exposed to AFFF foam and you're trying to claim ankle pain related to it, right? Probably not going to work. There's really not much of a connection there, but you want to make sure that what you've got, do your research, look it up, do some stuff, but this is for you. And just remember that the Congress is working on those legislative efforts. They're working on those 2 acts. Isaiah mentioned one of them earlier. And so, that there's things, the wheels are turning behind the scenes, but you do not have to wait until those acts kind of, finalize and work their way through the different levels of government. You do not have to wait. You can still claim while they're still working on that. And just make sure you gather your evidence, your service information, records, current medical diagnosis, talk to or get in contact with a medical professional to possibly get that golden piece of paper called a nexus letter. That is definitely big. And now Isaiah is going to start. We've got some frequently asked questions that we'll just go through here as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So what are some frequently asked questions usually related to AFFF? The first one that I can think of is, can I file a VA claim for exposure to AFFF? Well, the simple answer to that is yes. And I'll go more in depth on what that means. So veterans can file VA claims for conditions caused by exposure to AFFF. The VA recognizes the potential health risks associated with AFFF exposure and provides a platform for affected veterans to seek compensation for related claims. Remember, you definitely can, claim for the exposure to AFFF, but like, Coach TJ kept mentioning, that nexus letter is going to be important if it pertains to your situation. So act fast, go ahead and book that discovery call to see if we are a good fit for you and if we can provide you with a wealth of knowledge for AFFF exposure and what that nexus letter is going to look like for you as well. And then some other frequently asked questions. What health issues are linked to AFFF or PFAS exposure? So AFFF and PFAS exposure has been associated with multiple health problems, including certain cancers like kidney and immune system deficiencies and dysfunction, and also reproductive harm, as well as thyroid disease and liver issues as well. So that's just something to keep in mind. If you feel like you might have been exposed to AFFF and you might, you're experiencing any of these things, please be on the lookout for that to see if that pertains to your situation, to go ahead and put that claim in with the VA. The VA is always actively reviewing toxic exposure claims and working on new registry efforts. So like I said, the education piece of this is to always gain knowledge on what the VA is doing, what changes are being made, just so you can stay up to date. And so you have that knowledge to when to act, when not to do something. But always having that education is going to be very important, because the VA is always changing and they're always actively doing something on their end to better help veterans' lives. Another great question, how does the VA disability process work for AFFF VA claims? So the VA claims process for AFFF exposure involves throughout documentation of AFFF exposure incidents, medical history, or a diagnosed condition and related symptoms. veterans need to provide a comprehensive overview of the impact on their health to strengthen their VA claims successfully. Remember, this is important. Like TJ was talking about the diagnosis. You definitely want a current diagnosis on file to help strengthen your claim. So like he said, ideally within 12 months, you want that diagnosis for this process, to go ahead and, strengthen your claim for a AFFF VA claim, right? And to have that medical history, so the continuity of care. So how often have you been going to the doctor for these related symptoms due to AFFF? You really want to make sure that you're going to the doctor. I know as some of us veterans, we don't like to go to the doctor because we just kind of throw some dirt on and keep it moving. But making sure that you're getting into the doctor to get that diagnosis is going to be very important, and to show that continuity of care as well is going to be very important in this process for you to help strengthen your claim. And I'll pass it over to Coach TJ so he can explain PFAS exposure considered in VA disability claims.
That's right, man. So yes, PFAS, again, one of those chemicals contained within AFFF foam, and that is considered. So the most important thing to make a long story short with this one is just learn, educate yourself, be aware of the relationship between these chemicals and your exposure to it and the different various health conditions that are relevant to you. That's a big, that's a huge piece of the puzzle. Just understand how the dots connect with that is a huge thing. Another question that you may be thinking of is, are there any laws, and we've gone over this, are there any laws, anything that helps veterans with these types of claims, AFFF related conditions? Well, again, there are those two main legislative efforts, the Michael Lisick Military Firefighters Protection Act. The other one is the Veterans Exposed to Toxic PFAS Act. Okay, but they're very similar, right? They're both related to these different types of chemicals and the health issues that have been shown to be caused by that over time if you did have repeated exposure to it. And since I'm on that quick topic, I just thought of extensive exposure or repeated exposure is going to make the claim stronger. I've seen situations in the past where it was somebody who was in a career field that was as far away as you could be from these types of chemicals, but they did make one trip to a flight line one time and they saw some of that stuff being used and they were within 50 feet. If it was just that one time, that will make your claim a lot more difficult to rationalize, to substantiate. It's got to be a stronger claim. You've got to have repeated exposure to give yourself the best chance. So just keep that in mind as well. And then how does the VA evaluate AFFF related claims? This goes back to what I was saying before, those three main elements. The VA is looking for three main elements. Number one, if you did not maybe jot this down the first time, a current medical diagnosis. Number two, evidence of your in-service exposure. Again, this can be just based on what your MOS was alone. Sometimes that's really all that's needed. Maybe some statements from people you worked with, some pictures, sometimes people take pictures around these types of things if you have any doing that, right? But just some sort of evidence of that exposure. And then that nexus, that connection, that medical opinion linking whatever your condition is to that exposure. Those are the three main pieces. Now, if you do this, you put this together, you claim this, it works out for you, your claim is approved, your actual rating, your percentage is going to be based on, it's a case-by-case basis. So there's no situation where it's just like, oh yeah, you got this condition approved, it's an automatic this specific percentage and that's it. No, your percentage is going to be dependent on your actual symptoms and the severity of those symptoms, how often those symptoms happen, how they impact your life on a daily basis. Some people have a condition, but the impacts are on the more minimal side. Chances are, if you get approved, you may see a lower rating in that scenario. Some people have conditions where it is severe, debilitating. You may get a much higher rating. It just all depends on what your symptoms are, how you are impacted by that condition. And the last frequently asked question we'll go over here. which is, can I get VA benefits even if I wasn't a firefighter? So again, I had briefly mentioned this in the beginning. Yes, you can do this even if you were not firefighter, fire protection, so on and so forth. There are certainly other jobs that had to do some things with some exposure to this, and that could be things like training exercises. If you worked a lot in aircraft hangars, that, like I said, that have that fire suppression system. For those Navy folks, right? A lot of you that spend a lot of time on board Navy ships. I mean, that stuff is everywhere there, right? So there are situations. It's not a one size fits all thing. As long as you can prove your exposure based on what you did during your job, and that you've got that current medical condition, and then the link between the two, you know, the job title alone is not going to disqualify you. So just keep that in mind. And I will go ahead, pass it over to Isaiah, who will wrap up this piece of it.
Yeah, thank you for that, Coach TJ, again. Yeah, just like kind of a recap of what we already kind of talked about at the beginning of this topic. Just to, you know, for those people that are just joining in or missed it by chance, VA Claims Insider. You know, we provide the strategy. You know, we educate you, and we have a lot of great educational material where you can get that education for yourself to understand the process. Like I said, the VA is constantly changing. They're always making proposed changes. So staying up to date on that to see exactly where you stand, what changes are being made, if those things affect you, just so you can act fast, so you can have that knowledge if you're not already in our program, to get with your coach to see what they think about it. So, you know, having the education, like I said, we have TikTok, we have Facebook, like we're on now. We're on Instagram. We have a lot of great education materials, whichever one suits you best. I'm sure that we will find a way to get that education out there for you. So, you know, like I said, and then also medical evidence. Like Coach TJ was talking about, the nexus letters, the current diagnosis, and things of that nature. But medical evidence wins claims. I know you're going to hear that so many times throughout your duration of your time in the claims process, because I can't stress it enough. The more medical evidence that you have, the better off you are with the VA. You know, because you're basically trying to build up a caseload with the VA to show, hey, this is exactly what I'm dealing with. This is how long I've been going to the doctors for it. This is the diagnosis that they diagnosed me with, and to show the treatment that you've also received as well, if that's the case for you. So medical evidence wins claims. You know, that's a key pillar of this process, to have that medical evidence on file. And like I said before, and like Coach TJ also said, we do have an administrative services, also a preferred provider network called Telemedica, that provides things such as the nexus letters, the DBQs, which is the disability benefits questionnaires, that goes over the severity, the frequency, and the duration of all your symptoms. They also provide IMOs, which is an independent medical opinion, that goes over, like I said, all the symptoms that you might be facing. It's about 9 to 15 pages, so it's pretty in-depth, and it's great for medical evidence just because of how in-depth it goes into. And they also provide, you know, things such as mental health evaluations, 60-minute mental health evaluations, which is very, very good if you're talking about high-value claims such as mental health. And so, you know, medical evidence, like I said, wins claims. You're going to hear that a lot. I know I'm going to talk your head off about that one, but I'll go ahead and get off that topic for now. But then we also provide one-on-one coaching. That kind of goes into the strategy calls that we're going to have here. It's about 15 to 30 minutes, depending on your situation and where you're standing as far as your process goes with your coach. But, you know, the one-on-one coaching is really, really great because it gives you, you know, the chance to talk to your coach, to ask them questions, for them to be able to educate you on what the best steps are and what the path of least resistance is. Because a lot of times veterans come with their own, you know, own thing that they want to do, but that might not be the path of least resistance. So getting with your coach to understand, you know, what is the best option or route to go is going to be important on that one-on-one coaching. So if you're not already in our program, booking that call with the discovery call to go ahead and get you in our program, that's going to be great. But if you are already in our program and you're just getting started, make sure to schedule a time with your coach to go ahead and get on that strategy call, so you can go ahead and get the ball rolling in the right direction. So we do provide that great one-on-one coaching. And then we also provide claim submission education. So when the time comes for you to go ahead and you have all the medical evidence on file already for your claim, and everything looks good, the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, you can go into that claim submission education call with your coach. We're going to educate you on how to do the claim. We can't do it for you, but we can definitely give you that great education on how to do the claim yourself. So having that is going to be great. And then we also provide C&P education calls with our veterans. This one's extremely important because the C&P exam is probably one of the most important steps in this process. So getting on the phone with your coach to have that C&P exam education call with them is going to be very important, right? To understand what the exam is going to look like, to understand the education on how to approach the exam, because there's not a lot of great information out there on what the C&P exam is going to look like. So hopefully your coach can alleviate some of that fear for you going into that exam. So getting on their calendar is going to be very important, and keeping them up to date with where you're standing and where you're at in the process is going to make both of the jobs easier. And then, like I said before, we do have a lot of great education classes that are on Teams. We have about 3 or 4 classes every week that you can attend, such as Coffee with the Coaches. Like I said, that one's a personal favorite of mine. It gives all veterans a chance to just kind of talk about anything, talk about what's going on in life. It kind of, sometimes it kind of takes me down memory lane because we talk about things that happen in service. What does service look like for you? So I really love Coffee with the Coaches. I get my cup of coffee in for the day, and I hear a lot of great stories. And then we also have mental health exam education classes. Like I said, mental health is a high value claim here at VA Claims Insider. So having the knowledge of what the exam is going to look like for mental health is going to be important, and what goes into that. So getting into that class is going to be important as well. And then keep in mind, usually we take about 30 to 40 minutes during this class to kind of go over everything, but we leave like the last 15 to 20 minutes for Q&A, for questions. So if you have a question about that specific topic, or you just have a question about the process at all, this is your chance to ask those questions. Or do you kind of just sit in the background and listen to other veterans ask questions that you might be thinking of as well? So keep in mind, though, these classes are going to be very valuable to you, as they will set you up for success in the future. If you take what's in the classes, you apply it to what your situation is, and you talk with your coach, you should see some success, hopefully. And then also, we do, as our founder, Brian Reese, he does have a great book out there that I would highly recommend, watching and reading, because I've read it myself and I found a lot of value in it. It's called VA Claims Secrets. It's now available on Amazon for you to be able to order today. So you can look into that if you would like. And then, like I said, if you feel like you're on the fence to see, are we a good program for you? Do you fit into our program? You can always book a discovery call, and that's going to give you all the wealth of knowledge that you need to move forward with us and at our company and our organization as well. So you can go to vaclaimsinsider.com to talk to one of our team members. And we would love to partner with you on this VA claims journey, like I said before. That's what we're all here for, and that's what we're here to do, to educate you on this process. And so now we'll kind of put to a little bit of Q&A, and we'll see what we can do for you.
That's right. So I've got, I found a question here just real quickly that I'll get to from Lee, because I want to explain this. He asked, what about jet fuel exposure? That's a good question. And jet fuel is definitely one of those harmful chemicals where if you had, extensive exposure to it, similar to the AFFF, you can make a claim. Now, again, I had said this earlier, no matter what the claim is, those 3 pieces, you've got to have that: the current medical diagnosis, the proof of your exposure, and the connection. Maybe it's a nexus letter, so on and so forth. But to give yourself that strongest chance, you've got to have that. Jet fuel exposure is kind of similar to that AFFF, right? They're doing things for it. It's kind of a gray area, but similar to the AFFF. Yes, you can definitely put together a claim for that if you've got a condition that you feel like is related to that. Great question, Lee.
Yeah, I see something from Botto Rock. He says, what help is out there for me? Where can I start on this filing for disabilities and sleep? So great question. Like I said, if you are curious about the disability claims process and you want to learn more about that, you can always book a discovery call to go ahead and get helped out by a veteran coach like ourselves, like Coach TJ and myself. And there's many others out there. We have a really, really big team. So you're not left alone. We have a lot of great resources and a lot of great people backing us in this process as well. So if you would like to understand the process a little bit more, educate yourself and get that education from a great veteran coach, I would definitely say you can book a discovery call so you can go ahead and get started to understand how to file, what to file, and what makes the most sense.
Yeah, good. And I'll actually expand because I saw a few questions in there from Bado Rock. And so I'll even expand on that because another thing that was asked was I've been a VA patient for 4 years. They give me medication. I think it was sleep apnea, that type of stuff. So why haven't they rated me? So this one here is quite complicated. Now, Bado, I don't know, obviously, your specific situation. I don't know what's in your records. I don't know what's in your service records, all that type of stuff. So, but with any claim, this once again, I'll hammer this down. It goes back to those three things. A diagnosis alone is not enough. So you can't just get diagnosed with whatever the condition is, if that's sleep apnea, something related to AFFF, so on and so forth. It is the first piece of the puzzle, right? Because you've got to have that for the VA to even consider it. But that's not enough. You still have to have some sort of proof that that condition is related to your service. You've got to provide that. It's got to be available to the VA. Is that something to really convince the VA, right? That, oh yes, this is related to your service. And it's really got to be more than, well, it just seems like it. I feel it was obvious to me. Maybe it's common sense, but the VA, they're black and white, right? They're going by their policies, they're going by their procedures. And so any claim has got to be done in that way. So to wrap it up, I can't tell you exactly why the VA may have denied you in the past, but just on a general basis, the diagnosis is one piece, but it's not going to be the only thing to give you that rating. And hopefully that provided a little bit of help.
Yeah, absolutely. I see a question by James. He said, what was it that you mentioned was on Amazon that we can order? Yeah, so that's our founder, Brian Reese's book. It's called VA Claims Secrets, and that is going to be what you can order on Amazon to read over. Like I said, great education material and something to read over and get a grasp on this process, really. A lot of great information as he went through this process himself, being a veteran as well. So I would definitely say take a look at it and see if that's something that you would like to do. It is on Amazon. It's called, again, VA Claims Secrets.
That's right. The link is it was right up there. So let me see. I had something that I was kind of looking at here, and it's not it's exposure related, not AFFF, but I wanted to hit on this. Carlos asked about Agent Orange. So that's one of those ones that is Agent Orange, the studies there that they've done, much more established. There is a list of conditions, specific health conditions that has been established to where if you can, once again, accomplish those three things, have that current medical diagnosis of one of the conditions that is on the list, and then have your records and have your proof that you were exposed to it. If you went, you're exposed to Agent Orange, and then again, that nexus, if you can get one. But we do have a blog. If you go to the VACI blog page, there is, and you just search your specific topic, whether that's Agent Orange, whatever it may be. I mean, we've got tons of stuff on the VA Claims Insider website. Look into that because, yes, that you can definitely do claims for certain conditions based on Agent Orange exposure.
Absolutely.
I see another one here. I can get to it. It is, hold on here. This is not AFFF related, but this is a good question that may potentially save somebody's claim situation. So Last one to die says, good afternoon. I'm 100% P&T. Should I try TDIU as well if I'm not able to work? So congratulations, first of all, to you for being 100% permanent in total. It's unfortunate that you qualified for that, but I'm glad that you're getting the benefits from it. This is just an opinion, but if you're already 100% P&T, it's kind of like the mountaintop of VA disability, so to speak. If you're there, if I was in your shoes, I would not be doing any other claims. The only way to possibly jeopardize having 100% permanent in total is by doing more claims. The VA can, if they want to, if you do that, reevaluate everything that you've already got, potentially decrease things, so on and so forth. On top of that, with TDIU, which is, for those that aren't aware, that's individual unemployability. So basically what that is you're claiming that you cannot maintain gainful employment due to your service-connected disabilities. If you were to claim that and get on that, they pay you at the 100% rate, but you're not allowed to make past the national poverty income that's established by the government on a yearly basis. And that's not a high amount. So if you have a job, or even if it's just a part-time job, even if you go to the casino and win money gambling, stock investments, all that type of stuff, if you exceed a certain amount, the VA will then kick you off of the individual unemployability. So it's a pretty chaotic situation to be in. If you're already at 100 permanent total, you don't have any restrictions on you if you do want to work on the side, all that type of stuff. So right off into the sunset with that, my man. That would be my best piece of information for you on that one.
Yeah, when you're at 100%, I wouldn't try to go towards those revenge claims, as we like to call them. Your back might still be hurting, but you want to put it in through the VA because they denied you before. If you're at 100%, it's kind of like the end of the road. Not necessarily the end of the road, but like you said, the mountaintop. Just chill out up there. Chill out up at the mountaintop. Enjoy it, and take all of it in and absorb all the things that come with being 100%.
That's right. I see a question from Robert Menard, who says, I'd like to have some info so I can present my appeal for my other disabilities: diabetes, high blood pressure, sinus, rhinitis, leg, blood flow, neuropathy, a lot of stuff in there. So when you're doing appeals, it's important to, well, first of all, you can do some research, some education piece on your own as far as what type of appeal is maybe needed. Obviously, without knowing your situation specifically, I can't tell you exactly with that. But I highly recommend, if you're not, Robert, already signed up, at VA Claims Insider, or maybe you're unsure, book that discovery call, have that conversation, because, it's always good to go through this process with the coaching, if it's relevant to you, if it's necessary. Appeals can definitely be tricky. You want to make sure that you're in a situation where your appeal makes sense, where your appeal has got a chance. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. It really all depends on what's in your records and what the VA is saying their reasoning is for denying your claim. And also, this is just like a caveat, but those VA decision letters, I'm sure maybe Isaiah has been there or seen that. I know I have. When you get a letter and you read at the top and it says denied, a lot of veterans don't read beyond that. Just throw it in the trash, whatever. I knew it, that type of stuff. But those letters are roadmaps to potential success. They're very important. You need to know more than just that the VA denied it. You need to read through the rationale, read through the whole letter, because they will explain on that letter why they denied it. And most of the time, they'll even tell you on that letter what was missing in order to approve it. It's a roadmap. So just make sure, if you get denial letters, it doesn't mean always that it's the end of the road. It's a case-by-case basis. And you got to understand that, this process is, sometimes you just had a missing piece of evidence. Sometimes the VA will be like, hey, we see that like a lot of these dots are connected, but you don't have a current medical diagnosis. If you don't read far enough and you just toss it, that's not too bad, right? All you got to do is go to the doctor, get treated, get it diagnosed. But sometimes you don't give yourself that chance. So just stay in it, stay in the game, keep pushing, read through your letters, and, sign up at VA Claims Insider. If that's a good fit for you, get a coach to one-on-one with you.
Yeah, unfortunately, denials do happen. Don't let that discourage you on the process. It does happen with the VA. But yeah, keep pushing forward. Like Coach TJ said, it's not the end of the road once a denial comes. If anything, like he said, it's a roadmap to what's going to be going on in the future, and the future of your claim. So, talk with your coach, see what she or he thinks in the denial letter, to see what the rationale was and see how you guys can move forward in the process. But don't let it discourage you.
That's right. And keep in mind too, everybody on our side, everybody on the veterans side, everybody in the VA side of things, everybody's human, right? So sometimes it's something as simple as a mistake, and it happens from time to time. So there's most of the time possibilities when you're doing these appeals one way or another. I did want to give a quick shout out to Ishmael. Thanks to you guys, he says, I am now at 100 P&T. Congratulations, man. Super happy for you, your family, anybody that benefits and sees the repercussions of that 100% P&T. Really happy for you. Super excited for that. So thanks for chiming in on that too. And sometimes, there could be one veteran just lurking, watching, who sees that and finds motivation within themselves to go forward as well. So thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I see a question from Teresa James. Says, good afternoon. I have 60%. I am trying to get to 100%. I do have breathing conditions from working with radiation and chemicals within the lab. So one thing I would say about this is you might, fall under presumptive conditions in the PACT Act, depending on your situation. So definitely, if you haven't already, get with your coach to see exactly what makes sense for your case and your situation, so you can move forward in this journey. Because, with some presumptive conditions, usually you just need to go to the doctor to get a diagnosis, a good diagnosis, to state your claim through the VA. But like I said, I don't know your case, personally. So if you're not already, if you can go ahead and get in with your coach, to see exactly what conditions you qualify for and what you can put in for the VA to help strengthen your claim in this process.
That is right. There was another comment too from Teresa I wanted to highlight, more of a comment than a question, but she had said that I've been exposed to chemicals and got a 30%, not in firefighting, but I do have that breathing problem. So that's kind of an example right there for those of you who may have been worried, like, hey, my MOS, I just don't know if that's going to qualify, me for it. Well, you just got an example right there, live and in the flesh. Teresa was not in firefighting. She says she did get a rating still. So it's still possible, guys and gals. Just remember that.
Absolutely.
This is okay. Let me highlight this one real quick. There's a question here. It says, my original tinnitus claim was submitted without my lay statement or buddy statement. It was approved for tinnitus, but rejected for service connection. Should I resubmit? I'm just making a broad assumption here, but when you say it was approved for tinnitus but rejected for service connection, maybe what that means is they acknowledge that you do have tinnitus. They acknowledge that you're diagnosed with it, but however, they said it was not related to service. To answer that question, yes. If these statements were not included in your claim the first time around, you can certainly file for what would be a supplemental claim if your tinnitus was previously denied, and reopening it with those statements, as part of the evidence. For tinnitus, that typically works. If it's a different medical condition, a cancer, a breathing problem or something like that, and you've been previously denied and you're trying to appeal it, ideally in most scenarios, you want to get some sort of new medical evidence rather than just a statement. But for your tinnitus claim specifically, yeah, you can give it a shot reopening it with those statements. And that was a good question. Now, we are just about at the top of the hour. And so I want to reiterate again, if we did not get to your questions, you will be communicated with, you will be reached out to. Just remember, if you're unsure, book that discovery call. It's not going to hurt. Have that conversation with one of our team members. See if we are a good fit for you and your situation. We've got the live classes. We've got the one-on-one coaching. We've got all that stuff. So if that's good for you, if that's a good fit for you, book that call, make it happen. And one of the coaches here will be elated to help you out and get you going on your claims journey. With that being said, I'm really happy you guys tuned in today. This was a very interesting topic. And Isaiah, it was great doing this with you as well. It's always a pleasure.
Always. Thank you.
Yeah, yes, sir. And hopefully you all have a great rest of your afternoon, evening, morning, whatever it may be. But take care, everybody.
Yes, sir. Y'all have a good one. Thank you.